Good afternoon to everybody. We'd like to thank Carol and David Silva for sponsoring the short Torah on Parshat Shelach Lecha, and it's Le'ilu Nishmat, David's mother Tzipora Bat Moshe, that she should have an Aliyah Gan Eden. A lot of I think almost all the Mefarshim, when speaking about the debacle of the Spies and the sin of the Spies, everyone compares this to the previous sins of the Jewish people in the Midbar, and primarily to the sin of Chet Egel. Everyone contrasts one to that, and in fact, the Torah does that, because the Torah says, Hashem said to Moshe, "This is the 10th time that the Jewish people have rebelled against me." So obviously, it includes all the major times of rebellion during the period of the desert, and the main one is the Chet Egel. So I'd like to recap or three reasons, or three relationships between the Chet Egel and Chet Meraglim. The one of them we've spoken about previously in previous years, and I'd just like to maybe add on two more this year. So in years gone by, what we spoke about was as follows. The Chet Egel and Chet Meraglim was contrasted in this way, that Chet Egel was an intellectual sin, and the Chet Meraglim was not an intellectual sin. It was actually a perversion, a twisting of a flaw in the character, the collective character of the Jewish people at that time. And the context in which we made this comparison was that when it came to the 3 weeks, Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, one of the 5 reasons that we have the fast, which ushers in the three difficult weeks for Am Yisrael, is because of Chet Egel. That's how the Gemara in Masechet Tanit says. On the other hand, Tisha B'Av, 3 weeks later, one of the reasons for observing Tisha B'Av is because the Jewish people cried for nothing when the spies came back, and it was on Tisha B'Av. So over there, we went into the inyan that, on the one hand, the beginning of the 3 weeks recalls Chet Egel, Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, and the end of the 3 weeks, on the culmination of the 3 weeks of Tisha B'Av, which commemorates the Chet of the Meraglim. And the whole point that we went into was that we would think that the Chet of the Egel is much more severe, but the mere fact that we observe and we commemorate the fast on Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, which is only the beginning of the 3 weeks, it shows that it wasn't as bad as the Chet Meraglim. And that's exactly the point that was made, was that when there's an intellectual sin, so that can be, we're not excusing, but that can be dealt with much easier than when there's basically a character flaw. And in the case of the Meraglim, that's exactly what it was. It was a time that they said in Parshat Dvarim, it says that no doubt Hashem took us out of Egypt because he hates us. That's why he's giving us Eretz Yisrael in a way in which we have to fight with the wars and be killed. Right? That's what they said. And to say such a thing shows such a inversion, a twistedness of character. And that's something which fundamentally is, it shows that the people were so rotten, that generation, and that's what makes it so chamor. Okay, that's what we spoke about a little bit last years gone by. I don't want to go over it, but I'd love to add on 2 very interesting other approaches to this connection. The first one is the Beit Yishai, a contemporary great Talmid Chacham who passed away only a couple of years ago. The Beit Yishai, Rav Shlomo Fisher, in his book Beit Yishai, that he says that he contrasts these two, and he says they're actually diametrically opposite. that the Chet of the Egel was an expression of too much emunah. He's basing himself on a midrash which says, "Come and look how, in a way, pardon the expression, look how crazy in a way the Jewish people are. Whenever you ask them for something, they do it. You ask them for gold in order to make a golden calf, they give it. Then the next moment you ask them to give gold in order to make a mishkan, they do it." And the midrash over there bases the statement on a pasuk in Mishlei, which is "Peti yamin lekol davar." A peti is like a type of fool. It's connected to the word lefatot, which means to seduce, to cajole. So it's saying, look at the Jewish people. They are like petim. They are so easy to influence. When it comes to asking them to donate for this, they do it. When you ask them to do the opposite, they do it. In other words, they are like the peti who's ma'amin lekol davar, the person who is like easily seduced, or easily and like influenced, but he's someone who he believes in everything. So he understands this whole midrash as speaking about that the Chet Egel came from an abundance, so to speak, of emunah, not giving it its proper like borders and parameters on when and how to ma'amid. And on the other hand, when it comes to the Chet Meraglim, it's exactly the opposite. In the Chet Meraglim was a situation when the people had absolutely no emunah whatsoever, and that's what it says in Parshat Dvarim when Moshe Rabbeinu is recalling. When he's recalling the Chet of the Meraglim, so what he says is, "Uvadavar hazeh enchem ma'aminim," and on this matter you have got no emunah. When I told you to come into Eretz Yisrael, and that in Eretz Yisrael you'll establish a state which runs according to the laws of the Torah, you've got no emunah in these matters. You've got no faith and no trust in this. So you see the difference between these two. The one is too much emunah, and the one is absolutely no emunah. I'd like to conclude with a third explanation, which I'm interpreted in this way. I'll just tell you the Meshech Chochmah, and I think this is a little bit different to the Beit Yishai. The Meshech Chochmah says that when the spies came back from Eretz Yisrael, so when the spies gave their report, there was already murmuring in the entire congregation. They were already beginning to be agitated, and they were already started now to there was already like voices of rebellion. And the Torah tells us that Kalev was the one who silenced the people. It didn't help, but he started to silence them. And what did he say? What was his point? The Meshech Chochmah says he was trying to tell the people. See, first of all, the Meshech Chochmah says the people were afraid because they heard in Parshat Ba'alotcha, Rashi brings that, you remember, there were two prophets of the 70 prophets, Eldad and Medad, and the Torah doesn't say so, but in the Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin, it says the prophecy that they had was that that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to pass away in the desert, and the one who's going to bring them into Eretz Yisrael is going to be Moshe Rabbeinu. So that, having heard that prophecy, the Jewish people now were exceedingly afraid. They didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael because they heard, on the one hand, Moshe is not accompanying them. On the other hand, they heard that in Eretz Yisrael at the time, there were giants, fortified cities. The people over there were so strong. So they thought, there's no way that we can conquer Eretz Yisrael from a natural point of view. We need miracles. We need extra zchuyot. We need extra merits. If Moshe Rabbeinu is not accompanying us, how can we do that? So Kalev said, no, you've got too much faith in Moshe Rabbeinu. You must remember that the Jewish people are above Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu comes in order to serve the Jewish people, not the other way around, that the Jewish people come to serve Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore, he's saying to them, we can do it. Right? We don't have to think that Moshe Rabbeinu, his being over here, is the reason that we can conquer Eretz Yisrael. So I think, according to this explanation of the Meshech Chochmah, I think that the severity of the Chet HaMeraglim was that it was a repeat of what happened in Chet Egel. In other words, just like in Chet Egel, what was the problem? The problem was that Moshe Rabbeinu was delayed in coming back to Eretz Yisrael, coming back to Har Sinai, and therefore the people panicked, and they thought that without Moshe Rabbeinu, they can't go forward to Eretz Yisrael. So what they did was they wanted some sort of representative, the golden calf, that would somehow be a form to replace Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, they had too much faith in Moshe Rabbeinu. And now, once it happened once, okay, it happened once. But now, when it happened a second time, exactly the same thing. They hear over here that Eldad and Medad as prophecy that Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to accompany him. And again, they get into this panic and they think that we can't go forward. So the first time, that's like forgivable. But now to repeat, after we saw all the terrible, the tragedy, what Chet Egel did because of this over reliance on Moshe Rabbeinu, says, yeah, that's it. That the Exaltin was something that couldn't be rescinded. So according to this way that the Meshech Chochmah is saying, I think that the severity is because they didn't learn the lesson, and that therefore, in a way, Chet Egel is in a way Chet Meraglim is in a way a repetition of the problems that were already beforehand, and that's something that hasn't gone away. We are still faced, especially like in our days. You see what goes on in the newspapers. You see how the people speak about Israel. Certain people, we don't going to go more into it. But the Chet of the Meraglim is still something which is a big problem over here. In other words, how do we have Eretz Yisrael according to the Torah, B'ezrat Hashem, that this new generation, the war of Simchat Torah, and most of the people who have now become more inspired, more connected to Emunah, will bring about an ultimate tikkun of the Chet HaMeraglim. Shabbat Shalom to everybody.